It is now officially okay to talk about Thanksgiving. Chad Garner's post to Twitter today and Facebook, the Sentinel and Enterprise, I think it about sums it all up. Welcome to the Thanksgiving edition of the Coach's Corner alongside Leominster High School head coach Dave Palazzi. I am Todd Robbins. Happy to have you along with us for this week's show, talking all about our favorite topic. It is okay, once we reach that point, that bye week between kind of the end of the rest of the regular season and when Thanksgiving comes along, Coach, it's now okay to talk about the rivalry, all the run-up to it, and then obviously the matchup between the two teams on the field.
Yeah, I mean, it was rather difficult this year because in playing Groton Dunstable, Fitchburg had played them, so we tried not to watch Fitchburg when we were scouting Groton Dunstable, but of course, everybody was watching Fitchburg. So, but anyway, we exchanged films, and we're going to be ready to go. I think it's an evenly matched ball game, and I think I said to Chad Garner Friday night, I thought it was going to be a great game. In years past, I mean, we kind of have had similar seasons, so to speak, with our records and just the way the games have gone against common opponents. I think it's pretty fairly matched ball game. So I think it's going to be, of course, all the cliches will come into the game, and whoever plays the best and the least amount of penalties and all that mumbo jumbo stuff. But I think on paper and looking at both teams and what we've done against common opponents, I think it's pretty straight up even game.
We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on, but first, let's put a bow on the 2017 Blue Devil regular season, at least the first 10 weeks of it. Let's take a look at that schedule and kind of how things have transpired to this point. 7 straight losses to open the year, followed by 3 straight victories when all of a sudden things turned. Victories against Algonquin, Groton, Dunstable on the road, and then North Middlesex at home. In the 10th week of action brings us to the doorstep of the 136th meeting, the 112th Thanksgiving Day Classic, and we'll have more information on all that and all the ways you can be a part of it as we continue throughout this edition of the Coach's Corner. But Coach, let's kind of just wrap up this first 10 weeks of the season thus far. Through the first 7 weeks, you were looking for that moment when the tide was going to change. You reached that 8th week, and the tide finally changed. And before that 8th week show, you said, at the end of it all, 4-7, I want to rip off 4 straight victories. It's a 4-week season from here on out. You've gotten through 3 out of 4 of them, exactly the way you and the team had hoped. And it just seems like the team found itself somewhere in the start of that 8th week.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's tough, Todd, to play 8 weeks for the playoffs, and really with a young team, and we had some things happen where we had guys that didn't come back to our team that were probably going to be starters. So there was a lot of juggling going on in the first part of the season, and our schedule was very difficult. So we really need to make some plays and do a lot of things early on, which we didn't get done. And obviously it was a struggle to keep these guys afloat mentally and physically. But I thought I've said all year I've had a lot of fun this year with this team. I think they've showed a lot of character, a lot of heart, and not giving up and not pointing fingers. And you think of seasons like these can be really, really tough, as they have been on me and the guys, I'm sure. But I in my experience, I've gone through a couple of these seasons, and I've never admired a group of kids more to stay focused and just keep playing and showing up for practice. I talk at school with other coaches. I mean, this is football. It's not like you have 2 games a week or 3 games a week in baseball. We can just get back at it. It's 1 game a week, and you really have to grind it out. It's cold. You're tired. You're hitting. So, I give my guys a lot of credit and my coaches to staying focused, and we have gotten better each and every week. We've won our last 3 games, and I think we've done a lot of good things. I think our younger guys have showed on film that they're progressing to where we think they can get this year, and then obviously we want them to get better for next year and years beyond that. But for the most part, I think the guys have come together, played hard, and it showed the last 3 weeks, and hopefully we can carry that on into Thanksgiving.
We talk a lot about offense, so let's start first with the defensive side of the football, at least over the last 3 weeks. You had said to me a couple of weeks back on this program you wanted to see your team fly all over the place. You wanted to see the Philbin brothers fly all over the place. You said, hey, hit anything that's moving. Make sure that you're doing the job that you're out there for, and so on down the line. And you could see that. You could see that maturation period coming over the last couple of weeks. You could see the guys flying around and finding, who they were actually supposed to be following, and then putting contact to them. And I feel like it all kind of was culminated in that game last week against North Middlesex, where Coach Sandy Ruggles is not afraid to throw wrinkles into his game, send a couple of different things at you, and see what you do with him. And it seemed like the defense responded and knew where they were supposed to be, when they were supposed to be there.
Yeah, I mean, hats off to our defensive coaches, Coach Murphy, Coach Truax, Coach Navarro, and Coach Meza. I mean, and obviously Coach Curtin with the D-line. They've been really working hard, trying to get kids in a position to be successful. I mean, when you have 4 freshmen that you're shuffling in and out of there, where you really haven't seen, we've seen them all year, but we haven't seen them for a few years. So, and our D-line, we're getting healthy, and I think they've really stepped it up. Our defensive line has been playing really well, and I think that's helped our linebackers, and I think the Philbins and Marchand and Del Judas done a good job on the second level, and then obviously our defensive backs are getting better week in and week out. So it was good to see. It was good to see them get some plays, some interceptions, having a little fun out there, and just seeing them gel together. Hopefully we can carry that for another week.
More importantly, they were capitalizing on mistakes that were being made as well. A couple of different cases against Groton Dunstable's interceptions that almost were, but for, whether it was a flag at the line of scrimmage or other little things along the way. Same thing last week against North Middlesex. When North Middlesex would make a mistake, they'd make them pay for it on defense as well.
Yeah, obviously it's great as an offensive coach to get that ball back and get those turnover on downs, whatever the case may be. Not let them, have a 3rd and 20 and get a first down and things like that we really hadn't done early on in the year. We give up big plays and things like that. So we've begun to make big plays ourselves. So, we're just focusing on that and just looking at the things that we don't do so well, as all coaches do, and try to improve on those things and making our reads a little quicker and just different things for different teams. Obviously, with Fitchburg, it's going to be a smash mouth game, so that obviously things will change a little bit there.
You mentioned the contribution of the freshmen. Something that we've talked about before is not something that happens at the varsity level of many programs very often, and it's not because necessarily it's frowned upon. It's just you don't often get a freshman who can transition right out of 8th grade youth football and directly into high school varsity football. It's a large leap in competition. It's a large leap, obviously, as players get older and go through their growth spurts. So to have freshmen that are contributing week in and week out on both sides of the football is not only special, it says something about their skill level and development, and obviously projecting them out into the future as well.
Yeah, and I haven't seen that a lot. I mean, we don't have a lot of depth, and they're just good hard players, and we feel that that they're as good as anybody out there working hard. So you don't want to make a habit of putting freshmen out there. I mean, you look at the Philbins. I mean, they were playing 8th grade football last year. Now they're on a varsity field Friday night under the lights at Doyle Field playing teams that are number 1, 2 in the state. So, that's a big ordeal, but we're excited that these young kids can come up and contribute to our program. And, they have three more years of football left, and we've had a lot of sophomores contribute this year as well. And, we're looking for those teams to obviously chip in, those classes to chip in a little bit here and there. And, hopefully we can bring them all together next year and get a little better. But, obviously we want to finish this year off strong and go into Thanksgiving with a lot of confidence and play well.
We talk about building a chemistry and keeping players together one year after another. To have that chance for a class to gel over the next 2 to 3 years, sophomores and freshmen pairing together, they'll have senior leadership next year and players that have played since they were sophomores. You'd like to believe that obviously that team chemistry and that team environment that you were trying to find this year with the departure of so many players will hopefully be able to be found again.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at the rosters. I mean, our junior and senior class from this year, both those teams were 10-1 as freshmen. So you would think that, you look through the rosters and just kids have gone to other schools or they moved and, just different things. Parents get up and move out of state. We had a couple kids. So, those things happen. I've never seen it happen so greatly this year. And, obviously it had an effect. But with that said, it's given a lot of our other guys opportunities to step up and play. And, that's really what we're looking for. And I think these kids, respect one another. They're all about the team. It's not an individual, and that's really what we do at Leominster. I mean, we're about team football. You want to come play for Leominster, that's what you're going to get. We're going to play as a team, and hopefully we can win some more championships than we already have in Leominster. So that's really, you know, what I've been focused on all year is just keeping these guys with positive attitudes, and they've been outstanding. I mean, you couldn't ask for much more than what these kids have given this year.
And when you talk about team atmosphere and chemistry and finally being able to capitalize on things that you knew was possible, what we've seen over the last 3 weeks in victories is the offensive side of the ball. The side of the ball where we knew the talent was there, it existed, and just needed its opportunity. Finally, over the last 3 weeks, it's gelled, it's posted the points, it's capitalized on opportunities, it's done all the things you've asked it to do.
Yeah, I mean, we had to make a decision early on in the season, and that decision was try to get our running game going. I mean, you saw that in St. John's when we lined up in too tight and just went after it. And then, you know, we had Lucas Lashua go down, we had Donovan Noguera, we had key linemen, starters get hurt. I mean, Lucas Lashua was a 2-year starter, captain both ways, out for the season, so that was crushing. And then not being able to throw the ball because we didn't have any returning receivers. They were just learning the system, and it was very difficult, you know, when you're kind of hamstrung and you haven't had a lot of work on your pass game, and you don't want to put kids in positions to fail, I guess, rather than, you know, say it a different way. But really, that's what it is. And you know, as Roger Mercier would say, you know, we've been throwing the ball. I mean, that's why our running game has come along, our offense has come along. We've been able to mix it up. We have confidence in 3, 4, 5 receivers now that can get out there and make catches. I mean, Jack Young made a nice catch a couple weeks ago against Groton Dunstable. Zach Del Judas, you know, you haven't heard those names. You've heard Viola and you've heard Rodriguez, but, you know, and Couch out of the backfield. So we've had guys really working on the pass game, and I think it's helped us tremendously. It's taken a lot of pressure off of our offensive line, you know, to really set up our run game a little bit, and we're more diverse than we were at the beginning of the year, playing a lot of the iron, so to speak.
Spend a second talking about, you know, big catches that you saw that maybe indicated the change had arrived. There was a catch last week that Mike Viola made. It was over the shoulder. He was cutting away toward the sideline, and it was just beautiful. It was exactly, to me, as I watched the play and described it, that was exactly the way that play was drawn up, and it was executed precisely the way it was drawn up.
Yeah, I mean, Pat's throwing that ball on the run. It was a huge play on 3rd down, and Mikey's been running that route really well. And, you know, he's had some big games for us. I mean, he's been a godsend. I mean, he wanted to play running back at the beginning of the year, and I mean, that's where our strength is at running back. I mean, we have, you know, guys that have played running back their whole life. So, you know, we asked him to come over and play some receiver, and he's our best competitor. He has great hands and been able to really get it done offensively.
Indeed, he has. So that is where we are at this point in time. That sets the scene for the battle that is to come. Leominster and Fitchburg, the 136th meeting of these two storied high school programs, and the 112th Thanksgiving Day Classic. Before we get to more information about that, talk a little bit more about the environment surrounding that, let's run down all the games that are going on here in central Massachusetts and beyond. A whole bunch of slides. Kate will run up there for us from the back. Let's start with this one. Of course, these matchups you know, have changed over the years. So you're going to see some opponents that maybe look a little different, especially in the last couple of years with all the realignment. Wachusett and Shrewsbury is a long-time battle, as is St. Peter Marion and St. John's, along with Neshoba and Clinton. Gardner and Oakmont have all been matching up with one another over the last number of years. And here's where some of the changes begin. Lunenburg now plays Quabbin on the eve as part of their program. Marlborough and Hudson battle, Westboro and Algonquin, Air Shirley and Littleton, another storied matchup. West Boylston now matches up with Assabet Valley. They previously had different opponents. This will be their 3rd or 4th year squaring off with one another. Then you have Neshoba Valley Tech and Monty Tech. Neshoba Valley Tech having a phenomenal year out there as well. They were #1 seed in Division 8. Tantasco and Shepherd Hill is a change of opponents. And then you have Murdoch and Narragansett, who have been playing each other now for a number of years as well. And then some new ones with teams that are coming into Division 3 Central Mass. You have Doherty, who has migrated into Division 3 Central Mass. They played Burncoat. North Middlesex and St. Bernard's, that's the other half of the former Eve Classic with St. Bernard's and Lunenburg. Lunenburg went off, got a different opponent. St. Bernard's as well. St. Bernard's now plays North Middlesex on a Thanksgiving Eve game. Groton Dunstable and Tingsboro have been matching up probably for about 5 to 10 years now. And then, of course, another long and storied program near and dear to my heart, as I've learned a little bit about it, Watertown and Belmont match up with one another out in Eastern Mass as well. And Coach, one of the things that we can see from all of those, as we talk about a number of games that have been going on for a long period of time, obviously to compete with Leominster and Fitchburg as well here in Central Mass. But there have been a number of Thanksgiving games that have gone by the boards since this transition happened with this playoff format. Teams don't want to play each other anymore in glorified, what they call exhibition games. It says something about how entrenched and rooted these rivalries are, and when they are. It doesn't matter what the format is that arrives at that game. When that day comes, it belongs all to itself.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from Leominster. I mean, anybody from Leominster and Fitchburg, I don't think you need to have this discussion. I mean, we could play 10 Super Bowls and then meet on Thanksgiving, and that would be the biggest game. So, I mean, that's the way I always felt. I mean, there's something about the rivalry, and I know other schools have it. It's something about the morning. It's a lot to be said with everybody coming back that you haven't seen in years, and just, everybody breathing. It's cold, and you see all that stuff, and the hot coffees and everything else. And I'm sure there's something else in the coffee at times, but we won't get to that. But you just see everybody that you always see, people that just go to the Thanksgiving Day game, one game a year. I mean, it's great. It's all about football that day. It's all about two great cities, and just battle it out. And across Central Mass, the same thing exists. St. John's, St. Peter Marion, two Catholic high schools, and really battling it out. And the list goes on. But I think it's a special time for, it's a routine if you've done it for years, if you've been a part of it like I have, and many others from Fitchburg. The DiGeronimos obviously have been through it. So, they know what it's all about, and there's nothing better than Thanksgiving football, in this part of the country. I mean, it's above everything else that you can talk about when it comes to football.
It's like the world's largest high school reunion that comes back, because it's not just a reunion of individual classes. It's maybe a reunion of the 4-year stretch that you were out there on the field together, or perhaps it is just the reunion of everybody who went to the same high school that you went to.
Yeah, of course. I mean, everybody. I think it's it's a comfortability. It's an easy conversation to have when you get back from college. Hey, you going to the game? Are you going to go out the night before and then go to the game? And it's kind of a meeting place for everybody that hasn't seen each other in a while, because obviously they're coming back to meet with their family and things, but they want to see friends, talk about high school, and go to the game if they played, or even if they didn't play, they were a cheerleader in the band. I mean, it's just a great venue. It's a great thing to be a part of. The sounds, going into Crocker Field or going into Doyle Field, you always have different memories of how that goes on in your mind, and you remember those things. And I think it's important that we keep this rivalry alive. I think it's a part of our tradition here in Leominster and Fitchburg, and it's really it makes up each city in its own way. A little bit of football sprinkled into the town is always a good thing.
Never a bad thing at all. And when I think about these two teams coming together again, and I think about the things that occur year in and year out, like you said, it's routine. And part of that routine starts with, and of course it did for many, many, many years, and then took a little bit of time off, and then came back, was the Thanksgiving Eve banquet here in Leominster. I know Fitchburg has a similar tradition as well. And I think that's part of what makes this exciting. You have the rallies in the afternoons, then you go to the banquet on Wednesday, and then you roll into the game on Thursday, and it's just one thing after another that kind of plays together to run up to it. We'll talk a little bit more about the banquet in a second, but first, your thoughts.
Yeah, it's just a number of traditions. I mean, you'll see, or I'll see players, walk onto the field during practice and come say hello and how's things going. And I played in 1973 or 75 or in the 80s, and it's just. It sticks with you when you play football for one of these, for Leominster or Fitchburg. It's such a great rivalry. You carry those memories with you, and you cherish those memories and what it's all about. And, the kids now, I think we obviously try to keep these traditions going, obviously, in Leominster with the banquet. We still do the burning of the shoe that I think Huck Hannigan brought to the city of Leominster, and football. So we do a lot of those things, and we try to keep these kids, give them a little bit of the history of the game. We'll do the Hall of Fame banquet Saturday at the hotel Doubletree, and our 81 team will be going in, and there'll be individual players that are going in. So it's a big deal around here. I think it means a lot, and we try to expose, or I try to expose our players to a number of those things, because I think it is important to be a part of traditions and be respectful of people that have really laid this out for all of us for the last 50, 60 years, over 100 years. I mean, it's it's a fantastic thing to have something of this magnitude in this day and age that has gone way back. And, you know, Mark Bedanza's written so many books about it. I mean, it's an important thing. I mean, those kids, you know, Mark came to one of our team dinners this year and handed out books, and the kids, their eyes lit up looking at the pages and all the stats in the book and various things. I mean, it's just an unbelievable game.
Helps you to understand that you're part of something larger. And I think sometimes when people talk about communities nowadays, they're so transitive. They come and they go, and they're here today and they're gone tomorrow, or they're arriving here and they play football, but maybe they don't understand everything else. You don't have those families that come 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 generations on down the line. But at the same time, you do still have some of those families here, and it's kind of all of our collective responsibility to help people understand the importance of what they're building on.
Yeah, I mean, some of the players, like my dad, won't be yelling at him, you know, don't come home unless you win. I think he told my brother that before Thanksgiving morning in 1977, and you know, obviously he wasn't 100% serious, but I think he was about 95% serious.
Sounds about right.
And you know, just those things passed down from grandfather to dad all the way down, and you know, it's just a great thing, and I think that the kids that maybe their parents didn't play in Leominster, I think that they're so proud to be a part of it, and just I think they learn more and more each day about the rivalry, and the more people that they meet and talk about, you know, Leominster football, and Gil Donatelli coming by, Mark Bedanza. I mean, you know, a lot of the teachers at the high school that have played, you know, Mr. Robichaud played, beat Brockton in '88. I mean, the number of Brian Mazzaferro going into the Hall of Fame. His wife Colby's a math teacher at the high school. So, you know, a lot of these kids get to say, wow, you know, a lot of our teachers were a part of the rivalry. You know, Tracy Hartman is a cheerleading coach, Leominster High School, Barry Hudson, the band. I mean, the list is endless, and it means a lot to our community. It means a lot, you know, to this city, and we attack it with 100% passion about what we do from everything that, you know, we bleed blue, truly bleed blue, and hopefully we can pass that along to, you know, today's generation of kids.
Of course, it wasn't terribly easy, I'm sure, growing up, as you had Togo there, who understood this rivalry rather in depth from its root, and was able to pass that down to you, which is a really tremendous opportunity, and also a live-in reminder of the importance of it as well. But there had to be others somewhere along the way. You talk about, obviously, today, you and others getting to expose new players to it. Who are the people that, to you, exposed you to this beyond, of course, Dad?
Well, I mean, obviously, all my, you know, Coach Vayette and Coach Bolio before him. You know, Coach Vayette was a huge influence on me and the rest of the players as far as the importance of this ball game. And, you know, at that time, Fitchburg and Leominster, we had good records, you know, undefeated, 1 loss, 2 losses, you know, 1 loss. So it was very, very competitive from a record standpoint, and just the amount and the level of passion for this game just driven into me by Coach Vayette and Coach Hickey at the time, and all my coaches and all the parents. I mean, it was just it was a huge ordeal. I mean, I think Lynn Spilios gave me something her dad pulled out of her garage barn. They were the 2 megaphones from my senior year with all the names on the little megaphone.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I saw Jamie Perla, who's in a football club. He coaches in the LYF. He's like, yeah, my dad made those at so-and-so plastic factory. They had a cap on the bottom, and they put popcorn in them.
No
and you ate them, and after you were done, you take the cap off, and you could, you know, yell into the little megaphones there. And it's just stories like that. I mean, I have so much memorabilia. I have cups, plaques, blankets, license plates, jerseys from when I played. When I played, it was a 100th game.
Yes.
So I have all of those things, you know, as memories. But you know, it's much more than that, obviously.
No question about that, indeed. Let's turn our attention a little bit to this game here in our waning few moments together on this edition of the Coach's Corner. You mentioned the record. Fitchburg will come in at a record of 5-5. You guys with a record of 3-10 in Leominster. You mentioned the transitive property of sports a little bit earlier. They've got wins against St. Bernard's, North Middlesex, Groton, Dunstable, Algonquin, with losses to Shepherd Hill, Neshoba, Marlborough, Westboro, Wachusett. That means they beat 3 of the same teams you did, North Middlesex, Groton, Dunstable, Algonquin, and lost to 3 of the teams that you did as well, Shepherd Hill, Marlborough, Wachusett. So by the transitive property in sports, if we're doing our math together, that means it's going to be one hell of a football game.
Yeah, I mean, I just obviously you look at common opponents and you want to see how they do, and you know, it's just, I mean, they lost 42-19 to Wachusett. We lost 49-19, and you know, the other scores, the Groton game, the Algonquin games are pretty similar. So, you know, obviously we're going to be playing each other, so you want to look at those films and you know, see what you can take advantage of, see what you think they're going to take advantage of. But you know, there's more to it than that, because it's Thanksgiving morning, and it you know, throw all those things out the window. You know, you got to perform at 10 a.m. on Thursday morning, and that's really what it's all about. And hopefully, you know, we'll probably get somebody that you don't expect. I say it every year, is going to come out and have an unbelievable game that no one expected to have that game. And you know, hopefully it's somebody on our side, and hopefully we can get that done on Thursday.
You mentioned the DiGeronimos, of course, over in Fitchburg. Now head coach Tom DiGeronimo taking over the team this year, turning them in a different direction, maybe bringing them back a little bit to some of that nostalgic Fitchburg that we were talking about here in Leominster as well. This will be the first time the two of you have matched up as head coaches against one another, but certainly you guys are familiar with one another from years past.
Yeah, I mean, Tommy played at UMaine when I played at UMass, so we played against each other. And you know, after Dan Walker, I thought, did a fantastic job at Fitchburg. After he had left, I said, you know, I'm assuming they're going to hire somebody that really knows the city and the rivalry in Fitchburg, and you know, they couldn't have got a better coach than Tom, and he knows the whole, you know, how it all works, and he knows everything. So you know, I'm sure those guys will be ready, and it's going to be a great exciting game. They'll be prepared to the nth degree, and we got to just match that intensity. We're going into their place. Obviously, it will be a hostile environment, and they'll be fired up, ready to go. So, you know, I foresee a lot of fans. I see a lot of red and gray, a lot of blue and white, and just the old-fashioned Leominster-Fitchburg football. I think it's going to be a great game, exciting game, and I'm excited. I can't wait.
You mentioned, of course, Crocker Field, and going into Crocker Field, that is always one of those places where it seems like something always happens. Whether the field is frozen, the wind off the water, there's something that happens every year you go there. It turns to mud, and people are changing jerseys at halftime, 1933. But either way, something happens along the way. Always something you have to be prepared for, and it's a game on natural surface again.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's every Thanksgiving. I mean, before Doyle was turf, the same deal. It's you know, we wearing sneakers, we wearing cleats. How long are the cleats? What can we do? So, you know, I'm sure that, you know, Crocker Field, obviously with the wind and everything going on up there, and you know, you never know, and it's a natural surface. And I love playing on grass. I mean, we've had a few games on grass this year, so you know, we got to be ready for everything, the weather, the morning time, everything like that. We just have to prepare for.
You make mention of that, Coach. It just occurred to me. You're 2-0 on grass this year and 1-7 on turf, relatively speaking. So, I mean, this is good news. Is what we. That's how we look at that. And it hadn't quite dawned on me until you had mentioned that as well. But as we look at this course, couple of players we got to identify that obviously you'll be concerned with defending. One of them is Sal Figueroa. Of course, he had a great game last week against Algonquin. 338 yards on 23 carries, or almost 15 yards a carry, 7 touchdowns. I mean, that sounds like a career day in one day, but the reality is he's been doing it all year long. He's one of the top rushers in Central Mass.
Yeah, he was ripping it up in there. I mean, I watched that game, you know, yesterday, and he just he hits the hole hard. They were blocking up front, and he's, you know, he was running like he wasn't going to be denied. So we're going to have our hands full. I mean, obviously we got to stop the run, and we got to stop him. And you know, I'm sure there'll be other wrinkles, but he's a fantastic back. He's had a tremendous year, and he certainly had a day of history the other night with as many touchdowns as he had. And you know, we got to stop him.
And we'll celebrate it all together at Crocker Field with the blue and white and the red and gray. Coach, thank you as always for another great year here on the Coach's Corner. Let's get a few promos in here for all the things that are coming up Thanksgiving related. It starts first with the Leominster Blue Devils Football Club and the Leominster Fitchburg Elk Lodge number 1237. They are honoring the Leominster High School football team on Wednesday night, November the 22nd, with their annual Thanksgiving Eve banquet. Rick Marchand has your tickets, $20 per person. You can call Rick at 978-660-2313. That's 978-660-2313 to be a part of another night of history the night before the game of history. Jim Remy, past president of the PGA Tour of America in golf, and of course a former Leominster High School football player, will be the keynote speaker that night. We're really looking forward to that. Always a tremendous event. We recommend everybody getting out and being a part of that one. And then, of course, it's the coverage of the Classic. It begins from 5 to 7 o'clock on Wednesday night on the K-Zone AM 1280 and 105.3 FM, streaming live at WPKZ.com. LemonsterTV.net with Recipe for a Classic. 2 hours of all the things Coach and I were talking about here tonight, all of those pieces that are outside the game of football itself, thrown together and blended up to make what is this fantastic football rivalry, 136 meetings and counting. And then, of course, an encore presentation of Recipe on Thursday morning, the 23rd, from 7 to 9 a.m. on the K-Zone, followed by our special 1-hour edition of the Countdown to Kickoff, beginning at 9 a.m., all the way to 10 o'clock and kickoff of the 136th meeting of Leominster and Fitchburg, the 112th Thanksgiving Day Classic. AM 1280, 105.3 FM, streaming live at WPKZ.net. Leominster TV is there. They'll be streaming live on Leominster TV as well. So many ways to be a part of it. Facebook has all that information for you. Please be a part of this classic each and every year. For Leominster High School head coach Dave Palazzi, I am Todd Robbins. I say thank you so very much for joining us. And in the words of the venerable poet Bob Cross, Leominster will win. I just know it. Until next year, this has been the Coach's Corner here on Leominster TV. A thank you to the Il Camino, Trey Hebert Construction, MP Crowley Company Incorporated, Dream Kitchens and Baths, and United Solutions. So long, everybody.